Tor, the very best in science fiction and fantasy.
Brian shared the bill with Brooklyn-based musician John Pinamonte, who took over the stage after Brian was done. John started off his set with 2 songs that had been inspired by the book. Here's a segment from his song Spaceman Blues.
I'm a real gone daddy. I disappeared in a puff of smoke. I'm a real local poppy. Have you heard my latest joke? You see, there's this octopus and his bagpipes. And the octopus says, play it. I'll play it right after That's it.
He also commented on why he'd felt so inspired by the book.
I want you to give it up for Brian Slattery. Come on. It's a pretty freaking tremendous thing to have a book published. And it's a cool book. I just wanted to say, I meant to say before I played Spaceman Blues, and I can say this with no callousness, this book is very heavy, even though it's got some very comedic moments, and it's a very thick, wonderful book about New York. And I think we all know people, and I personally lost somebody on 9/11, and they just disappeared. And reading this book really, it was a great time to read that book, because it's just about somebody that vanishes and how other people deal with it. And you know, I know that's kind of a heavy thing to say right now, but I meant to say it before I played Spaceman Blues, because I just want you to understand it's not just a comic book. It's a great novel.
John continued playing long into the night, often accompanied by Brian on fiddle. At some point, I snuck off with Brian's agent to talk to her a bit about how she'd found herself in this situation. I'm here in Barbes in Brooklyn with Cameron McClure, Brian Slattery's agent. She's with the Donald Moss Literary Agency. And Cameron, if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us a little bit about the circumstances that led to you working with Brian?
Yes, I was working as an assistant to Donald Moss, and one of my duties was to check his e-queries every day, and I also had a mandate to find new fiction, and I had a couple of clients, so I was checking the email, and his email stood out to me right away because it had the subject line of "have offer, need agent," so I immediately thought, oh, here's something I should read, and I read the query, which was admittedly a little bit, it was totally scattered. I thought, God, what is this about? But it was well written, which really distinguished it from about 90% of the other queries, and it had the offer attached. So I said, all right, send me, and I don't remember if it was 50 or 100 pages, but he emailed me the pages. And I do remember reading just the opening, like 3 or 5 pages, and getting so excited because it was so good. And you know that feeling you get when you're just swept away by some work of fiction. And I had it, and I remember I said step away, slow down, because my excitement was causing me to not fully focus. But I do remember reading those opening pages and that first 50 pages, and I think about maybe 2 or 3 hours later, I said, all right, send me everything, and we pretty much went from there.
And as things died down, I was finally able to sit down with the man of the hour. Brian, will you tell the people where we went for dinner tonight?
We went to a taqueria called Tacos de Nuevo Mexico. A typical taqueria filled with salsa and guacamole and all those good things. experience.
And so when your publisher is like, we want to take you out to dinner, what compels you to be like, we're going to go to a taqueria instead of we're going to go to this fancy restaurant where we can sit down and use white linen napkins?
Much rather the taqueria, because you can get more tacos for the same amount of money.
That is definitely true. It's one of those ultimate truths of life. And I guess similarly in the sort of non-standard array of choices, what spurred you on to choose to do this weird hybrid music reading type event instead of the standard reading?
I was sort of living the dream of being a beatnik for a night, like Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac and all of those people that used to really do readings with jazz musicians and things like that. And I thought, that looks like a lot of fun, and I want to give it a try.
And it was everybody seemed to love it, hopefully you have some sort of prior connection with Barbes, correct? Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to set up this gig if I didn't know the owner, Olivier, who is really gracious about letting me read here. It's very lucky that I happen to know him just because the bar, when the bar opened, I happened to live in the neighborhood and I spent enough time here and supported the bar often enough that he was willing to do a favor for a friend instead of me having to prove that I could bring people to his bar in order to throw an event here.
So the secret to literary success then is living in Park Slope forever.
Seems that way. Though I don't live there now, so I don't know what that means.
Do you have a final post-mortem for the night where you can tell us a little bit about, I guess, how you thought it went, where you think you're taking this in the future?
I'd like to do more things like this for sure. It was a lot of fun. People seem to like it. And I hope to make them bigger in the future. More people, more readings, more musicians, more everything. Because I think they're a lot of fun and they're a great way to sell books and also really entertain people. And maybe do some good in the world at some point. More on that later.
Okay, we look forward to seeing whatever you cook up. Thanks, Brian. By that time, we were rounding up on 2 a.m., so the last stragglers eventually gave up and headed to the subway. Give us a break, it was a weeknight. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride. If it piqued your interest in the book, you can find out more at bfslattery.com/spaceman.html. Thanks for listening.